previewing week 8 of the college football season. And Tetairoa McMillan, wide receiver for the Arizona Wildcats, needs to make a statement and prove he's wide receiver 1 when he faces Travis Hunter and the Colorado Buffaloes. We'll talk about this and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a senior draft analyst, and thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. And you know I got to kick the intro to Mr. LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at TheTalentCode. You talk to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. This is Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champ, man, and the other side to this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. And I want to start this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. Every listen is greatly appreciated here. DP, we are into week 8 as we coming off a great week in week 7, right? Had a lot of high profile matches, but guess what? We get a little SEC showdown, right? With Texas versus Georgia, with a lot of other big time matchups. So y'all know what we're going to do, man. We're going to pick a prospect to make a statement this week. We're going to talk about those second tier prospects, and then we're going to bring up those sleeper guys, give y'all the full rundown of NFL draft prospects combined with the college football, and talk about those guys. DP, excited week 8. Let's get into this conversation.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 back in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Keith, when I looked at the slate of games, I looked at the schedule for week 8, I said, who needs to make a statement? I thought about Jalen Milroe. I thought about Quinn Ewers. But, Keith, I went to that Arizona-Colorado game. And we just had the discussion, maybe yesterday's pod or the pod before, where we said, make the case for wide receiver 2. You want to know why we didn't do a case for wide receiver 1? Because this entire time we've had Tetairoa McMillan as our wide receiver 1. But Keith, you picked in that discussion, you picked Travis Hunter. There is a group of people that have been growing towards Travis Hunter being their wide receiver 1. Tetairoa McMillan, you are on the clock to make a statement this week. Going into this game, what you can't have is to walk in with the consensus title as wide receiver 1 and face the guy who's battling you right now as wide receiver 1 when he plays corner. And not just that, Keith, but what you don't want if you're Tetairoa McMillan, because last year when they faced off, you remember Arizona and Colorado faced off last year, Tetairoa McMillan did not have the greatest game against Travis Hunter. He did have a touchdown in that game, but he didn't have a lot of yards. Travis Hunter actually defended him pretty well for the most part. He did, like I said, he gave up that red zone kind of fade ball. Hey, listen, sometimes things just happen when you're just a big body receiver like that, right? But what you can't have is to have a game like that where, let's say you're targeted 7 times against Travis Hunter.
Yep.
He gives up 3 catches for 35, 40 yards. You get 0 touchdowns. But then he goes up against your top corner, Tetairoa Davis, who some people have slated right now, Keith, as a back end of the first round prospect. And let's say he torches Tetairoa for 150 and 2 touchdowns. What you do in that situation is the pendulum swings, and now Travis Hunter has the momentum as the consensus wide receiver 1, because on the same football field that you guys graced together, he locked you down and he torched your top corner. You can't have that happen. Tetairoa McMillan, now it's not all on him. As you always say, Keith, you coined it, wide receivers are the most dependent people on the football field. They need their quarterbacks to get them the ball. Noah Fafita, you got to get him the football. And in this game, Keith, if I'm Arizona, I'm targeting Tetairoa McMillan north of 10 times. I'm looking at 12 to 15 targets. You got to feed this young man. He needs to make a statement and show up, walk into this game with the crown, walk out with the crown, the sign, and the house that I am wide receiver 1.
DP, I looked at this matchup also. And I thought it was a rather interesting matchup for that, right? As far as make a statement game, either Travis Hunter or Tetairoa McMillan. I think the unfortunate part is DP, one quarterback is playing significantly better than the other, right? And
Right.
so T-Mac is kind of, he's kind of behind the 8 ball, right? Like you better hope you could give me some quick screens, some tunnel screens or something like that, some layups. But DP, we got this Texas-Georgia matchup, and we can't not talk about it, right? So
Right.
I'm gonna put two people on to make a statement, DP. It has to be Quinn Ewers. It has to be Carson Beck. And we just talked about one of the quarterbacks, Shedeur Sanders. Me and you had the conversation about QB1 last week, right? Shedeur Sanders. Then we have Cam Ward, right? And then Jalen Milroe. It seems like three of the combination is running away with quarterback one, right? Like that's what people are talking about now. Carson Beck, the game against Bama, right? That dropped you down a few notches. Well, guess what? You get another big time opportunity. That's why you play in the SEC. You get these opportunities in front of everybody, right? Quinn Ewers, you've been gone, right? You come back, you had a decent game in the Red River rivalry, right? You played solid football. But guess what? You didn't come back to Texas just to play solid football, right? You came back to win the national championship, 2, to be the best quarterback. This is that game right here. You played a great game against Michigan. You want to double down? You want to talk about Heisman? Oh, win this game against Georgia. Now you have Michigan under your belt and you have Georgia under your belt. So I'm looking at those two quarterbacks, DP, for one of those guys, if not both of them, right? Both of them make a statement. Make this back a 5-man race for QB1, right? And we talked about the supply and demand issue with quarterbacks. Y'all are playing to get into the first round, DP. Y'all are playing football to get into the first round. So you give me Quinn Ewers, you give me Carson Beck. One, if not both, make a statement, figure some things out, play some high-level football, and let's watch some good football.
No, I think that's a good call out for both guys, Keith, because Carson Beck had a pretty good game last week, against Mississippi State.
Probably their best offensive game, right? Offensive output.
Big plays down the field to Arian Smith, just like being able to push the ball down the field, push that umbrella that defenses have been playing with, push it back a little bit, right? Yep. Now we got to see, okay, in this type of game on the road, it is going to be a very loud environment in Texas. It's in Austin, Texas. So like this is a game where, and it's a night game at that, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. So you're walking into hostile territory. Carson Beck, these are the opportunities where can we get the second half of Bama? Carson Beck from the start. I don't want to see that the 2-3 turnovers, the fumble, the intercept. No, like just play clean ball and just go out there and ball, because at the end of the day, the guy who's been like you said, Quinn Ewers played solid last week. Quinn, solid is not going to cut it this week. Like you're going to have to come out here. And I gave him a mulligan last week because you've been missing for like 3 weeks. It feels like 3 or 4 weeks. Coming off the injury. It's like knocking off the game rust. So, okay, we got the rust out of the way. Now, let's go into this game because we saw what Arch Manning was able to do. The fans love seeing Arch Manning out there throwing the ball, running the ball because he's a better athlete, stuff like that. The fans love it. They're looking at, man, this is what it's going to look like next year when Quinn goes to the league. And we got Arch Manning every single game. What you don't need to do is go out here and struggle early, and then those cheers for Arch start to conjure up from the fan base. If you got 2, 3, 4 straight drives of no points, fans are not going to sit there and be okay with that. They're going to get restless and know that they saw what happened against Clemson. If Cade Klubnik played against Georgia the way he's played since Georgia, I'm not gonna lie, Keith, they probably blow Georgia out in that game. The way this offense for Clemson is rolling right now. That defense for them kept Georgia under wraps. If your defense can keep Georgia under wraps, Quinn, you got to go out there and put points up. Put Carson Beck in that trail mode to where he's got to come from behind, 2 scores, 2 touchdowns. 17 points. Put him in that type of deficit, and let's see what Carson Beck really is. He Jared Goff, where it has to be on time, on schedule, things have to be good around him for him to succeed, or is he a better quarterback than that? Man, I think this is a resume game for both of these guys, Keith. For both of those quarterbacks, it's absolutely a resume game.
Yeah, I agree 100%. DP, well, let's keep this thing going and flowing. And we talked about the make a statement guys, right? But there's those second-tier prospects, right? Those names that are still big-time names that can swing the pendulum for their team, winning or not, and we're going to have that conversation coming up next.
For most of us that like collecting cards, the idea of spending $2,000 or more on a Patrick Mahomes rookie card just isn't in the cards. I love collecting, but that's some serious money to drop. Thanks to slab packs from arenaclub.com, Now it's possible to score gem mints for a fraction of their retail price. Every card that I listed was hit from last week's Arena Club Slap Pack drop. Arena Club is the only repack that provides real value, a complete view of all possible cards, and clear hit rates for each one. Arena Club slab packs are revolutionizing the repack game with transparency. Right now, you can get 10% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL. That's arenaclub.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL for 10% off your first purchase. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks puts its members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off? Which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long. Download the app today and use the code LockedOnNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today and use the code LockedOnNFL to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Guys, it's Prize Picks. Run your game. Second tier prospects, Keith. I got to go to USC, the Southern Cal version, not the South Carolina. You know, they can't call themselves that anymore anyway. But with the Trojans, of course, Miller Moss is the biggest name there. Like, he's the quarterback. Woody Marks is quietly been balling all season. Last year they had Marshawn Lloyd, who he transferred from South Carolina, the SEC kid, going to SoCal, and he played well in that. He played so well, he was drafted in the 3rd round. Now you get Woody Marks from Mississippi State is where he was, if I remember correct. It was Mississippi State. Mm-hmm. He goes from the SEC to Big Ten, Pac-12, what you want to call it, Big Ten. And he's been one of their best offensive players, man. I think highlighting Woody Marks and in a game where, like, I think they need to continue to lean on him. Like, early in the season, it was fun with Miller Moss. He was cooking, things like that. His play has kind of tapered off a little bit. He's not been as consistent. You're on the road, too. Like, you're going up against a Maryland team who is well coached. They're tough. They got playmakers on the offensive side of the ball with Tay Felton and everything. Quarterback Billy Edwards can push the ball down the field and move with his legs. In this game, on the road, 4 p.m. kickoff Eastern time, I think establishing the run with Woody Marks is going to be big. But also, he can catch the ball in the backfield. I got a feeling he's going to end up landing in that 3rd round, especially if he goes to the combine and tests well, which I think he will. He showcased speed, acceleration, movement skills. I think the bag drills, the deuce McAllister drill, the deuce drill at the combine, I think he's going to do a really good job with that because he's got really quick feet and he stays upright, low center of gravity type of back, dense build. I think this is a guy similar to Marshawn. We're probably going to see in that late day 2 range. Depends on how, like, if Caleb Johnson from Iowa declares, and it muddies up this running back class even more, you know what I mean, and put more talent into it. And somebody like Woody Marks could fall to the 4th round, as we saw with some guys from this draft, Keith. But I wanted to highlight him. This is a young man that's been playing good ball, and I think he's got an opportunity to, especially on the road, to be leaned on, and they should lean on him.
Yeah, DP, he caught my eye week 1 when I was out there for the LSU USC matchup and watching him and seeing him in person. He's built how you want your running backs to be built, right? Like, well proportioned, good lower halves, explosive, sturdy upper body, like just built well. And you seen him finish off the run against LSU, right, in that matchup. Mm-hmm. So yeah, he's definitely a guy that I've had on my radar, just kind of watching him sparingly, and it's like, you're kind of hesitant to do it because you're like, okay, yet another running back, right? Like, there's another one in this class. With DP, my guy, I'm going to go with a couple guys. It's funny that you mentioned South Carolina, right? Because that's actually where I was going. South Carolina is playing at Oklahoma. And we talked about this South Carolina team. You beat LSU, you beat Bama. totally different season, right? You're contending for maybe first in the SEC East at this point, and probably have one of the best resumes in college football. You're probably a playoff team. You finish out just the last few moments in both of those games. I'm gonna go with the defensive line because you want to beat one of those perennial historic blue blood programs. This is one that's right there sitting there, right? Yeah. Oklahoma struggling offensively. I can't remember if they're on a losing streak or not. I know they lost last week to Texas, and I know they lost a couple other games, right? And just not playing good football, trying to figure out the quarterback situation that has not been great over there. TJ Sanders, Kyle Kennard. This is a game y'all dominate, right? This is a game where y'all put y'all foot down and you say, you know what? Y'all struggling offensively. We about to go get us some numbers, right? Kyle Kennard, I think he's second or third right now in the FBS with sacks. Go ahead and make yourself a household name. Everybody's not paying attention to him right now because he's in South Carolina, and I think he was a name that was so far off the radar that nobody's paying attention, right? But now you're in this moment, you're in this position, you're starting to gain steam. Go make some plays. TJ Sanders, like I said, I think he's one of the best interior defensive linemen in this draft class, right? You got DeMonte Capehart, you have Walter Nolan, right? You have some of those guys. I think he is like right under that. But go make some noise, athletic guy, get upfield. So I want to see those two guys as far as second tier prospects that have the opportunity to dominate a game. It'll be those two defensive linemen for South Carolina. Pay attention to them.
No, 100%. I love that call out simply because I believe the offensive line for OU has been a problem. Like blocking has been an issue for them, and then they've gone, I think, multiple weeks with their top 5 receivers out. Like, I don't know if we've ever seen a college offense like, okay, yeah, you might miss your top 5 receivers all out at the same time for multiple weeks on end. So you got a new quarterback who's young. You got on the depth chart wide receivers 6, 7, and 8. Who weren't expecting to play at all this year, maybe on special teams, are now starting. I don't know if this is a good situation for Oklahoma because of the fact that defensive line, like I said, Kyle Kennard, TJ Sanders, and then you got the freshman. You know what I mean? Like they have literally a 4-man. They don't have to blitz. Like I watched it against Bama's offensive line.
I think Tonka Hemingway over there also.
Tonka,
veteran.
Yes.
Yep.
They got a lot. That defensive line. They got a corner, defensive back. Number 7, 6'3", 227. I think he plays corner and kind of safety. Nick Amon Wari. Like this is a guy, big, physical, can play multiple positions. Like that defense is really good. Now they just need Lenore Sellers to continue to take steps forward, grow, get the passing game going, get Nick Harbor going a little bit, and they should be fine. Keith, I'm gonna go to UNLV. Senior wide receiver, 6'1", 190, Ricky White III. Man, I listen, this young man is coming off of like the seasons was the first 3 games, it was kind of slow. And then, I'm not gonna lie, it might have been when they made that quarterback change. When their quarterback said, listen, you promised me 100K, I haven't seen the 100K, so I'm going in the portal. And then they started the backup. I think that's when Ricky White's season took a turn for the better. Since the Fresno State game, 3 straight games, Fresno State 10, 127, 2 touchdowns. The loss in overtime to Syracuse 2 weeks ago, 10, 135, and a touchdown. Last week against Utah State, 7, 138, and 2 touchdowns. He has been balling the last 3 weeks. I think it's really been the quarterback change because the other quarterback was more of a runner, and he leaned so heavily on his legs. While this quarterback is willing to throw the ball to their best weapon, this is a guy that, again, in the wide receiver class where things just aren't clear of who's where after the top 3 to 4. Yeah, there's money to be made. And I think Ricky White is one of these money makers. I think he's got an opportunity this weekend to go out there and make another make some more plays against Oregon State, late night game. I think 10 p.m. Eastern kickoff. We'll see who's awake to watch it. I know I'll be watching it on film on Monday, but I think he's got a big opportunity to go out there and make some plays.
Yeah, DP, I'm going to roll with Kyle Monunga, right? The running back from Rutgers, going against UCLA in that early slate. And just, opportunity to put your name out there, right? Like Rutgers, UCLA is a somewhat flashy name. Yes, I know they're not the greatest football program, right? But somewhat of a flashy name. People may be willing to tap into it. And guess what? You have new viewers, right? Get some people going, right? Like Running Rock, Tote the Rock. And he definitely, and we know this, DP, he's definitely a difference maker, right? Like just with his talent level and what he can do. And then the other two guys I'm going to wrap up with on my end, TCU at Utah. This is another night game, DP. You might be asleep for this one, right? They play at 9:30. And I'm gonna name two guys, Jack Besh and Savion Williams, right? Both of those TCU wide receivers, because their stock is doing this, right? Their draft stock is moving upward. It's looking like a stock chart, a good stock chart, right? And those guys are playing good football just to see, hey, go against Utah. I think they're on the road. Go ahead, play good football, make your name known. And then I think they're kind of, even though it's the late game, they're probably the premier game at that time, right? So some eyes will be on that. And those are definitely difference makers, guys that can change a game. And Utah's offense has still been struggling. That team has been struggling, especially when Cam Rising was out. Go outscore those guys, go home, go to Utah, come home with the win.
No, I like that, Keith. And I mean, Utah's last week struggled defensively, making tackles. Like I said, the offense just hasn't been what they expected it to be due to the injury to Cam Rising and everything. Big opportunity for TCU. Hoover, the quarterback, he can sling it. I think he's also a mobile guy, can use his legs. Got to get he gets Jack Besh going a lot. Get Savion Williams, 6'5", 230, 225, athletic guy. Like, he's one of the strongest receivers in college football. Just in the weight room, get him going, get both of these guys going, and I think you probably can run away with a win, because if you could put up points against this offense, they can get behind, and I don't think they can catch up.
Yep, I agree with DP. Let's keep this thing going and flowing, man. On to what I feel like maybe your favorite segment, right? The sleepers. You like bringing out the alarm clock and waking people up. So we're going to talk about those sleeper prospects, man, that we believe are difference makers this weekend. We're going to talk about those guys coming up next.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch or an urge in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the exact same page where you placed your bets. When you talk about placing bets, FanDuel Sportsbook has their Super Bowl odds for 2025 right now. And Green Bay Packer fans, you are plus 2,000 behind the likes of the Philadelphia Eagles at plus 1,500, the Minnesota Vikings in your same division at plus 1,100. So I say you go ahead and get in on the action right now. You'll get started with $200 back in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Again, place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 back in bonus bets guaranteed. All you need to do is go to FanDuel.com and get in on the action. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. That alarm clock has to go off because, guys, it's time to wake up to talk about some of these sleepers. Keith, I've mentioned this young man's name before. I'm going to mention it yet again. San Jose State wide receiver, former quarterback, Nick Nash, 6'3", 195. He's coming off of back-to-back games, over 75 yards receiving, and a touchdown in each of the last two games himself. And they're facing off with Wyoming. I think this is an opportunity for Nick Nash to make a lot of plays for himself. He's had a good season, man. And again, a guy, like I said, 6'3", 195, 200 pounds on the season, 62 receptions, 806 yards receiving, 10 receiving touchdowns. He's averaging 13 yards per catch. He's been balling. There's only one game this year that he's had less than 80 yards receiving. That's just how consistent he's been. But not only that, like there's two games this year, back-to-back games, back in September last month against Kennesaw State in the 2 overtime loss in the shootout against Washington State. The young man in back-to-back weeks, 17 receptions and 16 receptions. So they target him at a high clip because he's somebody that they absolutely know, hey, we got to get the ball in his hands. And that background as a quarterback, we've seen quarterbacks convert the receiver and make a successful transition, because what's the one thing they know that quarterbacks need? Be at the spot. Timing is everything. Being at the spot and the point where I need you to be by how the route is designed, I think this is an opportunity for him to put up another potential 200-yard game against Wyoming.
DP, I like that one, and that one is definitely off the radar. I'm gonna do this, DP. I can't go total sleepers because I think we gotta inform the people some more of some of these matchups. And like I said, I talked about Texas, Georgia at the beginning. I'm gonna kind of wrap my part up with Texas, Georgia because there are some key matchups. Michael Williams versus Calvin Banks. Look out for that, right? Everybody's been looking out for Michael Williams to make a statement game. Make this statement game against one of the best offensive tackles in the country against Calvin Banks, right? But then I flip it, DP, and I look at this Texas defensive line, right? You're talking about edge rusher Barron Sorrell, right, from University of Texas, going against these these Georgia offensive tackles, Ernest Green and then Xavier Truss, right? And Xavier Truss, Ernest Green, they're kind of picking up some momentum, right, in the community draft circles. Look for Barron Sorrell to battle against those guys. And then you have Dylan Fairchild and then Jared Wilson, right, is the interior offensive lineman for Georgia, the center that everybody's starting to talk about. Hey, this may be the best center in this class. Look out for Vernon Broughton and Alfred Collins, the two interior defensive linemen. That matchup, two guys that are both 6'4", 6'5", good athletes. See how they're able to kind of stress these teams. And then I'm going to look on the outsides, DP. We talked about Dylan Bell, right? This is a game. This is a game that you go off. This is a big-time moment. This is where you make your main. So Georgia wide receiver Dylan Bell is also another guy, this Texas secondary. And then for Texas, I want to talk about Matthew Golden, because I like this kid. I like this kid a lot. I just think that there's been a failure of them being able to build chemistry and momentum. But you talk about short area quickness, elusiveness, ability to make big-time plays. This guy was a flat-out baller at University of Houston. I think he can get some things done here at Texas in this type of game because you know what? He's going to need to. He's going to have to. And when Quinn Ewers was healthy, I don't think he had the receiving yards, but I want to say early on, he's probably 4 or 5 touchdowns in the first 2-3 weeks, right? So he's a target for Quinn Ewers. So those are the guys that Texas-Georgia game. I just felt like, we talk about second-tier, third-tier prospects, right, that they're not the headline names, but still, it's going to be a big-time game. I know our locked-on family is going to be watching. Those are some of the prospects to check out.
Matthew Golden, the first 2 weeks when Quinn Ewers was playing, 9 catches, 91 yards, 3 touchdowns against Colorado State, and then combined with the game against Michigan, he hasn't had a touchdown since Quinn Ewers was out, which is crazy, right? Like you said, he wasn't really the big, they're targeting him 7, 8, 10 times, but he was still making enough plays, and not just like making plays, but scoring the ball, right? Getting the ball in the paint and scoring those touchdowns. I'm gonna go to Kansas State. Edge rusher, guy that's not really talked about a lot, but last week against Colorado, Brendan Mott, 6'5", 244 edge rusher. This young man gets after it. He has such that ever running hot motor. Like, that the things that you can't teach is effort, desire, want to. He has all of that. On the season, 8 sacks, 6 QB hits, 9 pressures and hurries. He's stopping the run. And last week against Colorado, 2 sacks, a QB hit, 6 pressures. Like, this young man was a wrecking ball against that Colorado offensive line that truthfully had been playing a little bit better over the past couple weeks. And then it was a game where we all know it went down to the wire for Kansas State to pull out that win. And, losing Travis Hunter, to me, the Heisman is typically like the MVP, most valuable. They lost Travis Hunter. They lost that game. But nonetheless, like, when you lose him and that game, you didn't have your top corner out there, like, Kansas State was able to pull out that dub. But Brendan Mott was just a man on a mission. He's got kind of that swag to him. He's out there flexing and doing the whole Shedeur Sanders Rolex celebration after getting the sack. This guy, he gets after it, man. I think for him, like I said, 6'5", 244. You think about those, just because he's not the 250, 260 hand in the dirt traditional defensive end, but a guy that can get after. You think about Alex Highsmith. Those Steeler edge rushers, those guys that you look at and you say, man, he doesn't have every single bit of the measurables or athletic traits that you look for, but somehow he can get 8 to 10 sacks this season. This is the type of guy that Brendan Mott has shown up to be, and I'm excited to see what he's able to do this weekend.
Yeah, I like that, DP, because I haven't got eyes on that guy yet, so it's going to be exciting to check him out. Off the radar, I'm gonna bring up a name that might be familiar to you just a little bit. This is the talent factor days right here. I'm gonna go with Isaiah Nair, wide receiver. This guy was a transfer from Wyoming to Texas. He tore his ACL. I think I gave him a 3rd round grade just based off of his Wyoming film. He transferred from Wyoming to Texas, tore his ACL at Texas, and then transferred again to Nebraska. I wasn't completely sure why he transferred. And thus far, DP, he's had a couple good games, right? He had a 100-yard game week 1 against UTEP. Against Illinois, he had a 4-catch, 90 yards, 2 touchdowns. He has 4 touchdowns on the season. I'm looking at it from this perspective, DP. They're going against Indiana, right? This is a big-time matchup for Nebraska, I believe. They're going against Indiana at Indiana. Go make some plays. Get your name back out there. You're 6'4", 200-plus pounds. Get your name back out there in the atmosphere. You kind of been away for a minute. You had momentum. You've been away. Obviously, the injury. Go get your name out there. I think it'll be exciting. I think this is definitely a wide receiver that's off the radar. But, DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day, man. Every listen is greatly appreciated here over at Locked On NFL Draft. I am Keith Sanchez, and you can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. And you can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube. Wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. Guys, on Monday, we're getting into some mock draft Monday. Keith dropped the new mock draft. We got to talk about it and get into it. And I get to grill Keith about some of these player landing spots that he put in his mock. So we're going to talk about that on Monday's show. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow. The Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.